I totally want to explore more of the polarity stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually had, so I was on a date not too long ago and with again the same younger gentleman. I'm throwing him under the bus big time here. But the check came and
Mm.
it was sitting there for like 20 minutes. And then I just was like, I just grabbed it and I paid for it. I was so passive aggressive and I was pissed off and then I couldn't hold it in. So I was like, listen, if you think that this is some Mrs. Robinson, dynamic,
Mm.
that I'm just going to take care of you, this is not what
Mm.
this is. And I got really angry. And I was like, I don't feel like a woman. I'm super dysregulated. Like my body's shutting down. I'm able to say this out loud. So that's a good thing.
Mhm.
But I didn't know how to like alchemize it. And he was really calm and he said, I'm just kind of confused. Cause you brought your card out and then, I just didn't want to get in the way of you paying. And we got into it. And at first I was like, bullshit, bullshit,
Mm.
bullshit. And then we got into it. And it's like, this is actually a thing with a lot of women these days. And I've talked to plenty of men that I have no sort of romantic relationship with that have given me their experiences of like being yelled at or vilified
Mm.
for opening a car door,
Mm.
um, or picking up a check. So that does happen.
Mm.
It does happen, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of mixed messaging around that, which I didn't realize how much of an effect it has on men, especially the younger generation.
Mm.
Um, I think, well, millennials and Gen Z are just very confused by it. And to be fair, we've had upwards of 12 new wave feminist movements in like the past decade.
Mm.
And there's been nothing for cisgender heterosexual men, right?
Mm.
So I understand the frustration. So there's a lot of pushback when, we're hearing about trans rights, which I'm a full advocate for, but I understand how the cisgender heterosexual man feels more repressed than anyone else
Mm.
out there,
Mhm.
right?
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah.
And at the side note, I'm like, please open my car door.
Mhm.
I'm like,
No, I was like, listen, let me get this straight. Like, I never want to pay. I never want to
yeah,
pay. I never want to pay. I did that for years. I've paid rent for boyfriends. Like I've done that.
yeah.
I have done so much work to not do that. So I never want to. Like
Yeah,
please don't
yeah.
feel like you're ever like, over giving
Mhm.
or being too kind. It's no such thing with me. Please
Mhm.
provide.
Yeah, I know, but I could totally get the mixed messaging because I have friends that, they were on like websites like whether it was Seeking or some kind of sugar thing, but then they even had times when it came down to lunch or dinner, they're like, "Oh no, I'll pay," or "I got it," or their willingness to receive anything in that
Oh
capacity.
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh wow," I'm like, "You're asking or you're showing up in certain spaces where it may be more likely to occur,
Yeah.
but then you're shutting it down when it actually comes time to like welcome in."
Yeah, that's been really difficult for me. Actually, that's my big core wound I've been working on is my ability to receive
Mm.
because a lot of that stems from I think sex work where I call it provider privilege
I'm
or
curious.
escort entitlement.
Yeah.
So if, everything's transactional for you, then out in the real world, when you start dating, when you're with a partner, you feel like you owe them something.
Mm.
And so if someone wants to be with you just
Mm.
for you, you're confused by it. It's very unsettling,
Mm.
doesn't feel safe. And so I would be prone to
Mm.
overcompensating and like, oh my God, someone actually accepts me. So I better make it even. I better pay for this. I better
Mm.
do something dramatic to show them that I couldn't just sit still and receive.
Mm.
But the more I know about masculinity, and I talk to a lot of men that are masculinity coaches that work a lot in this space. Um, the best gift you can give a man to really embody his masculine is receiving from him.
Mm.
And receiving doesn't have to be monetary.
Mhm.
Like, sure, that's great. And yes, they should get the check. But there's ways you can provide as a man that are as simple as like picking a daisy from the public park next door, making dinner, driving her to an appointment, to work. And I think a lot of men have conflated providership with monetary value, which I feel bad for them because they don't feel like they're ever good enough. The whole thing is men are never enough. They never feel like they're enough. And women always feel like they're too much. And both of those core beliefs get perpetuated by society and unfortunately by a lot of our past trauma in relationships.
Wow. I mean, like, I'm like, oh, I feel like some ahas are going off in me too, because like even like I'm like newly into this, like not even a month, like kind of courtship dating thing with my. Actually, I'll leave that detail out. But,
next podcast.
Yeah. Drop some, keep real mint. No, but yeah, no, I've found like, because we met in the wild. Yeah, there's a piece of me sometimes where I do feel, that, let me split this or let me get this or something. Or I see that like coming up in my interactions with him or witnessing it. So I'm like, oh, something to ponder and go back to myself. Because in other spaces, I'm like, oh yeah, like
yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. I was doing some deprogramming work on myself around it the other day, and because I had a tendency to choose unavailable men and not unavailable emotionally per se. That also happened, but like geographically, life stage, newly sober, startup was failing, something, long distance. And that was because my father was away as a touring musician as soon as I was born. He'd be away for like 6 weeks at a time, 4 weeks at a time. And so I equated love with distance and longing and yearning. So full presence, super dysregulates me. So whenever a man has shown up for me as his authentic self and with intent, and I can, it's crazy. All these revelations, I can trace this all the way back to like elementary school. And I've had the biggest crush on a boy. And then as soon as he'd ask me out, which was so innocent and harmless, I would like almost be like repulsed. And like, cause I like, it didn't feel safe for me. I would freak out. I would hide, I would run away. And that pattern became very pervasive in my adult years. And I could never figure out the origin of it because I have great parents. So it's taken a lot of work and it continues to take a lot of work to like, oh, when I want to run, when I want to pay, when I want to, get the check and when I don't feel okay just being, I have to take the slowness is take a beat and sit through that discomfort.
Noted. It just had this like within the last couple of weeks of like, I really like longing. Like I like there's something about the longing that I love. And I've tried unavailable in all sorts of ways, whether it was prison, newly sober.
That's good. You beat me.
Married at certain times, although not anymore.
Yeah.
And emotionally, all of them. I'm like, but yeah, I was like, oh wow, it's the longing. I really like that yearning because Dad was a truck driver growing up. I loved our relationship. So gone.
Yep. Same.
Yeah. And then I could also sense his love and affection for me, although it wasn't always voiced. But yeah.
So then what we do is, we fill in the gaps with fantasy because I never saw my father full time. He was never a whole person. So I put him up on a pedestal. This is mirrored in the Madonna-Whore complex. Women have daddy issues, right? So I filled in those voids with fantasy and made up things about him where, to my mom, he was a great father to me from what I saw, but to my mom, he wasn't like the best partner because he wasn't there all the time. He wasn't emotionally present all the time. And so, we just project, right? And this shows up sexually as well because we eroticize our trauma. So to what you said about, the yearning and the longing and same, my favorite thing is edging. It was such a crazy revelation that, it was like it was more fulfilling and exciting to me than the act itself a lot.
Mm.
Right? Like, it
Mhm.
was like, because I could just fantasize about it instead of experience the full presence, which
Mhm.
was a trip.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, "Is that why?" Sometimes I'm like, "I don't need the big O."
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
like
yeah. Yeah.
I'm like
Yeah.
it's so interesting. Yeah, when after like I was writing this book and doing all kinds of things, and I was reflecting and going back. I was like, "Oh my god, I had so many aha moments and epiphanies and connect the dots." I was like, "Oh, that's why I had this choice or make this, have this dating like, um, what is it, proclivity." um, but I read this book called Getting the Love You Want by like Dr. Harville Hendricks. And it talks about like how the relationship we have with our primary caregivers is oftentimes the good and bad or positive and negative traits shows up in who we're dating, how we're dating, and like repairing some kind of childhood trauma. And so whenever I was looking at someone, I was like, oh my God, I've been trying to date my dad.
Yeah.
And initially, like years ago, I think when I was in my early to mid 20s with someone that said daddy issues, I'd have been like, no,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't have daddy issues.
Same.
I have two great dads.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. No, I would do the same thing.
then now I'm
And
like, okay, yeah,
I was like, my whole thing was, I had the opposite of daddy
Yeah.
issues. Actually, it was really funny. Like a few weeks ago for my dad's birthday, because we're like best friends. I told him, I was like, so I figured out my father wound. And he's really into Jungianism, and he has a
Mhm.
Jungian analysis, and does a lot of shadow work, and he's willing to riff on anything with me. And I sent him a Google Doc of of my father wound, and he was like, "Yeah, but I'm like a good guy though." I'm like, "Yeah, but like, I mean, it's your fault." He's like, "But I mean, it's your interpretation." I'm like, "It's your fault." Like, we were just it was actually quite funny, but he was really receptive to like acknowledging it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, my dad died. I'm like, oh, I wonder if he would be open and receptive to that now.
Yeah.
Although I've had some interesting encounters with him in like psychedelic spaces.
Mm.
Like I did a ketamine series, and like his inner child or younger child was dancing with mine,
Oh,
and we had
wow.
this beautiful like encounter in what I call my ketamine oracle space.
Yeah, I know
'Cause
it
I'm,
well.
yeah, I'm like, where am I?
Yeah.
And so we had this moment. I'm like, oh, am I supposed to like feel it all? Or he's like, yeah, sorry about that. And he's like, I've been here the whole time. You can always ask for like my guidance or assistance or help. And I was like, wow, it's just interesting. But yeah, when my mom read my book, she's like, I feel like I damaged you or da I'm like, well,
Yeah.
yes and no. Like, yes, but I don't know what parent didn't make
What
a
parent
formative
doesn't?
impression, yeah, on their
Exactly.
kids.
Exactly.
But I don't see you. I was like, really, it's about my daddy wounds or my
Yeah.
father wounds.
Yeah.
But and I didn't really position you or, in my mind as like the source of all my trauma.
And it's so funny.
But
I was the opposite. Made my mom bad for many
mm,
years. And my mom came from a lot of trauma, um, sexual abuse, and her father took his life when she was
mm,
a child. And she kind of became the parent to her mother and to her younger sister. And she became a social worker and then worked with like street level sex workers, right? So
wow.
her view on sex and sex work was very, very skewed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I rebelled. So again, if we go back to like the
Mm,
mirroring of the Madonna-Whore, I did that to myself. Like, women can also have that split within themselves.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Oh, yeah. I'm like, oh, now I need to go back and like, yeah, because I'm like, or yeah, in certain spaces, I can probably sense myself showing up as one or the
Oh, and
other.
I would find evidence to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I still catch myself sometimes if I'm, had a couple drinks and I'm at a dinner table and I go into this condition of like, I'm just gonna be the whore by making this vulgar joke because it's safer for me to do that than to just like sit in silence and be seen,
Mm,
or be overly flirtatious or seductive, because that's a protective mechanism.
mm-hmm. Like the humor deflecting.
Yeah, and then I'm like, why doesn't anyone see the Madonna in me? Because I'm not even letting
Mm,
them.
mm. Yeah, and maybe they will if you just like allow them to just see.
Yeah,
Mm.
Yeah.
It's a potent reminder. I was like, yeah, what do we call the Madonna-Whore on the female side? But it's the same. I was like,
I'm calling it the same.
Yeah,
Calling it
yeah,
the
I know.
same.
It's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Ah, I'm curious. I'll kind of connect these two things, and we
Mhm.
have about 10 minutes left. About you posted something the other day, and since I guess a lot of them stem from like the Madonna whore complex, but about a lot of the common sexual struggles that men are encountering today.
Mm.
And you listed four. I'd love to get your insight or take on some of those common struggles, or like how to navigate or how to unpack some of the layers, or what do you suggest in that capacity? Is it going back to the Madonna whore?
Yeah. I mean, sexual issues are physiological and
Mm,
psychological,
mm,
right? So we have to look at them holistically. It's usually a both and if
mm,
you go to traditional sex therapists or doctors, they usually just treat the singular issue,
mm,
which isn't actually treating it, right? So common issues are performance anxiety,
mm,
erectile dysfunction, delayed ejaculation, premature ejaculation, um, suppressed and repressed desires, shame around sex. And a lot of those are intertwined. If we're looking at something like erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, um, delayed ejaculation, trouble staying hard, then we always want to look at the physiological components first.
mm,
So nerve functioning,
mm,
hormone levels, um, the physicality of all of that. And before we then go to looking at the psychological
mm,
element. So we want to do like a whole holistic intake. But strangely, the same methods that are used for treating, like, say, premature ejaculation are used for treating delayed ejaculation.
mm,
So it's all about getting into the body
mm,
and mindful self pleasure practices
mm,
and somatic awareness. So men are, raised as little boys to experience pleasure one way. Like when they first start discovering masturbating, what are they doing? They're masturbating like really quickly because they're afraid mom's going to walk in.
mm.
It's like this one note wonder. And mom usually probably did walk in at some point,
Yeah.
right? So then they associate that with high anxiety, nerves,
Mm,
excitement. And again, we eroticize our trauma.
mm,
So then that high anxiety state is conflated with arousal.
mhm,
So then later on in life with partnership, it's like we're only experiencing sex in
mm,
in one way. And that's just not how it plays out. That's why a lot of men lose interest in partners
mm,
and start to numb out or oversensitize because they don't have an erotic lexicon. There's so much more available to them. So to really get familiar with other types of touch,
mm.
other types of sensation, and track your arousal. Like I have my male clients keep an arousal tracker.
Oh, cool.
And so on a daily basis, like what are they aroused by and what are the
Mm,
feelings behind that? What do you notice? What are the judgments that come up? And then we dig
mm,
into it because some of those arousal points are benign. They just are what
mhm.
they are, and that's fine. And others have a deeper meaning to them.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think that's such a good like tool and takeaway. I'm like, even for myself now,
No,
I'm
it's
like,
great for men and women
yeah, I'm like, I
too.
want to explore this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, and you mentioned like the different types of touch. That's been something been loving like so much of the sensual lately.
Hmm.
And probably like not even lately, but more when I can dial it back, I'm like, oh, okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, like exploring like the different types of touch, like
Yeah.
the different element styles, like whether I'm like, do I like soft and slow? Do I like
Yeah.
the fiery and scratchy? Do I like grounding, earthy?
Totally.
And
Kimmy Inch just taught me all about that at
oh,
her
cool.
workshop the other week, the seven
Ah,
layers. And
ah,
and I knew them, but I didn't have words for them. So I
mm-hmm.
was like, oh, I'm gonna totally incorporate that into my framework. And
Yeah.
it's so awesome. Because again, that's expanding your pleasure, your erotic landscape. There's so
Mm-hmm.
much more available to you than
Mm-hmm.
you're even aware of. And, to also tie that into the erotic blueprint, great tool
Mm,
to use.
mm,
I love using that even for like when I meet a new potential partner, before you engage in any sort of sexual activity, like if you send them the erotic blueprint test, first of all, you're going to see if they opt into it. Like if
Good point.
you want them to yes and you, you want them to agree and escalate with you and see if they can opt in. And then it also tells you like if you're compatible and where you're aligned and where there might be some misunderstandings. So you can go into it with like a framework. But it's really interesting because I started off when I first took that test, I was number one energetic, still am, and then shapeshifter, and then kinky, and then sexual. I think my last one was sensual. And then I had a very, very sensual partner. And I always used to knock sensuality. Like, I thought it was lame. Like, I was like, oh, like soft jazz music and like bubble baths, like boring. I want dirty, primal, profane. And then I had a lover that was just transformed my view on that. And he really caused me to be present in my body and slowed me down. So I was introduced to so many other erogenous zones and sensation, and it was extremely transcendent. So now my second is sensual and his first is energetic. And so it's really interesting to see how they interplay.
Yeah, no, I've been meaning to send my new interest the erotic quiz. Like, I'm like curious. I'm like, where are we shared like some like sexiest moments that happened to us last night. We were just having a conversation like, oh, tell me, some past encounter.
Erotic
yeah. Didn't use that language. But yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I'm curious. And I'm like, I want to peek behind the curtain a little more. I totally think you'd be open to it. Okay, so I'm like, arousal tracker, core erotic blueprint. I just started reading The Erotic Mind, so I haven't.
Okay.
I mean, I'm like only a couple chapters in.
You got to talk to me when you finish
okay,
it.
I will.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, fascinated.
It's like you
all
talk
this
to
stuff.
like any one in the space, like when you talk to Leola or Kimmy, or any of my colleagues. It's like, what was one of the books that changed your life and brought you to this work? It was like The Erotic Mind.
Wow. Okay. Yes. Bumping that back up in the queue. I tend to have like book ADD, so like sometimes I'm reading this and a physical copy of this and something on my Kindle.
So do
I need to just like own in and finish something. I love everything that you brought here today. And there's something else that you mentioned, but now I'm having a little brain fart about it. And if it's gone, it's gone. And I'm like, oh, Kimmy's thing. I was going to try to go to that, but it was sold out. So, yeah, maybe catch that on the next one.
She's in demand, that woman.
I would love for you to share like anything that you got cooking or that you want to share. Just got a couple more minutes left about if there's anything that you want to just express now to have the space that we haven't covered, and then also like how to connect with you, any other like programs or events you have coming up, all that jazz.
So I just finally launched my website 2.0, coralosborne.com, and every month at the top of the month I give away 5 coaching sessions, completely free, no commitment required, to the first 5 men that respond. And I give them a tool that they can walk away from that session with for any of those issues that we mentioned, everything from, performance anxiety to erectile dysfunction to premature ejaculation to desire discrepancy to shame around sex. This tool can be used across the board. And then I'm launching my podcast next month called The Next Man Up. And it's me talking to a bunch of dudes about the paradoxes of masculinity and the misconceptions around masculinity and sexuality. And that's, been part and parcel with my own exploration of, there's so much more left to learn for me. So yeah, that's what I have coming up. And then on the event section on my website, you can always see where I'm going to be speaking, what kind of events I'm going to be hosting, which are usually between here and Austin or New York and LA.
Cool. I'm so excited. Thank you for coming on. I feel like I could peek behind the curtain with you so much more. Like there's like so many, I'm like, had like 2 or 3 pages. I might have to have you come back on whenever you're back in town or something. Or...
I can so relate. That's how you know it's a good conversation though, because you just like are able to riff on those top like 3 points.
Well, so good. And thank you guys for tuning in. Stay in touch for next week. Can't think of the top of my head who actually it's going to be a comedian. So we'll dive into that area of self-exploration and expression, and check out Coral, and I'll put all of her show notes and links in the show notes or my assistant Telswell. Thank you. Thank you. Cool.